Hi. When Karen said she wanted to celebrate Jim's life tonight, I decided that what I would like to do is share a letter that I'm writing to Jim. Over the years, he and I have exchanged a lot of cards and letters and everything, so I thought I'd share one more letter that celebrates Jim as a brother. First, you have to know that Jim was never referred to as anything but Jimmy until he joined the service. So for this purpose, we're going to call him Jimmy. It says, "Dear Jimmy, it is now 6 a.m. Easter morning, and like most days, I woke up wondering what your day would be like. Over the years, we haven't made it our routine to call each other every holiday, which has been fine. You've always been in my heart, and besides, the surprise calls during the unexpected times really seem to make it special. Remember those calls from Europe? I'm sure they were expensive, but I thoroughly enjoyed the evenings when you called and told me all about your new life. It was especially entertaining after you'd had a few beers. Some of those conversations were a little spicy. More recently, how great it was to get the midday calls while I was at work. It was a fun break to talk about your day. Can you believe more than 30 years have passed since you moved away from home? Funny, away from home maybe doesn't fit in your case. You've had such an adventurous life with so many homes. I guess Dad's house in Manchester will always be our home to me. The little cape on that small circular street where we ran through the neighbors' yards with herds of kids, rode bikes in packs, and played outside until the sun went down really was a wonderful way to grow up. Do you remember the after-dinner kickball games that would be going on in the backyard? Everyone wanted to make sure you and Bruce were on their teams. As the sun would go down, Mom would call us in the house one by one to take our baths. I'm sure she made us girls go in first because you boys would be such a big loss to the game. It was still fun getting to come outside to clean up after our PJs and watch the rest of the game. As we got older, the street light would be our signal that time was up. It seemed like we could go on playing forever. But your energy never waned. There's a reason you got monkey bars for your birthday. You were always moving, although unfortunately not always looking in the direction you were going. They say we are able to remember things from our childhood the best if it was an emotional memory. So Jimmy, why do I seem to remember asking Mom, is Jimmy hurt again? What other kid do we know that breaks off a tooth running into a house? Or breaks the storm window with his head before Dad can even get out of the car with the key to open the door? Or runs full speed ahead, wrapping himself around a chain fence to be knocked out? Even our big old gray cat took one look at you laying on the floor and would think it's time to rumble. I laughed thinking about how funny that was when he sauntered into the living room and jumped on your back with all claws out as you lay there on your belly watching TV. Your energy lasted into the night as we all became accustomed to the hum of Jimmy rocking himself to sleep. I love remembering how you and Bruce would be on reconnaissance every Easter and Christmas morning. The two of you would sneak down the stairs to check out the goods before coming in the girls' room to get us. The excitement waiting for the all clear from you guys was more fun than the gifts. You guys thought you were in stealth mode sneaking around, but actually Mom and Dad were pretending to be asleep. When I picture you as a kid, you're always a little dirty, kind of tousled with a big smile. I honestly can't recall you ever being sad or angry about anything. You always went along with the gang or were equally content to entertain yourself. In hindsight, we shouldn't be surprised that you ventured out on your own. I've always thought of you as so independent, accepting, and brave. You enjoyed the company of anyone that would be kind to you. You didn't expect anything from anyone. For years, you entertained the little Bidwell boys who lived a couple of doors down. It was so sweet when the smallest of the boys would knock on our door. We'd have to look down through the storm door to see that anyone was there. He'd ask if Jimmy could come out and play. I still smile clearly remembering you as a teenager, so kindly telling this little boy you'd go out to play. I recently had a chance to visit with a childhood classmate who remembers how you'd spend hours as a teenager playing racquetball with his retired father. You enjoyed each other's company, and that's all that mattered. As children, we had lots of routines, like taking turns drying dishes, having 2 cookies for dessert, watching Brady Bunch on Friday night and Hee Haw on Sunday, in bed reading by 8 o'clock, changing sheets on Saturday, the list goes on. What I remember so fondly is when the routines were broken. One evening, after dinner, you and I got to giggling. I don't recall why, but we just couldn't stop. Dad eventually sent us to our rooms so he could hear the news on TV. We were too happy to care. That's the kind of silly laughing only you and I had that I cherish so much. It's always been precious to me that we relived the same thing the morning of my wedding. You were the only one who stayed at my apartment with me. You were home on leave. When we got up in the morning to get dressed, we found that your pants were way too tight. I nearly broke a gut laughing as you marched back and forth modeling those skin-tight tuxedo pants. Another man would have been angry, but you started my special day off perfect. Another routine we could count on was the yearly trips to Maine and North Carolina. On one trip, we arrived to find that Uncle Wayne's dog had a litter. The big surprise was Mom and Dad brought us there to pick out a puppy. I swear you and Sasha were joined souls. She loved chasing you around and both of you jumping on each other. I don't recall you being as interested in cleaning up after her, though. Our North Carolina trips were a little less active. We'd pack 6 of us into a station wagon to make the all-day drive. You always ended up in the way back, bouncing around, looking like a bobblehead doll back there. The drives were long, so they had to give you some place to stretch. If I recall correctly, you seemed to enjoy it while you ate your whole snack bag in the first couple of hours. And finally, what about delivering newspapers every Sunday afternoon? Honestly, the 4 of us weren't too thrilled at the time. We didn't know why it was so important to Mom and Dad until the big surprise came. They had us running a family fundraiser to buy a swimming pool. Maybe interrupting our playtime wasn't so fun, but how lucky were we to have our own pool? Of course, it would have been more fun if the water was warmer. Somewhere in there, Mom and Dad were teaching us a lesson about the rewards of hard work, and I'd say it made a lasting impression on you. The last memory I have to include is about that outrageous high school graduation party you threw. What in the world were you thinking, inviting your entire graduating class? Filling the canoe full of ice and beer kegs was over the top. When Mom left John and I in charge of chaperoning your guests, I had no idea what I was in for. By the way, cutting the grass right before hundreds of wet feet trample on the lawn and walk through the house wasn't your brightest moment. It did turn out to be a pretty monumental event, though. So, Jimmy, thanks for all the postcards, phone calls, and thoughtful gifts. I will forever be proud of my handsome, kind-hearted, brave brother, Jimmy.
As you heard, my name is Jorge. I believe Jim left a message for 2 handsome Puerto Ricans to sit in the front. George and I snuck in, and we sat there anyway. Sorry, I'm not sure where you are, but so I'm Jorge Cordero. I'm a retired Master Sergeant from the Air Force. My buddy is George Pacheco, also retired Master Sergeant from the Air Force. As you know, Jim was retired Senior Master Sergeant in the Air Force. He had to be higher than us. We met Jim in 1987 in Bremerhaven, Germany. All 3 of us were stationed there at a little radar site in Vanna Complex, Germany, where that's the first time we met each other. We became really close. We were like really good coworkers. We always wanted to work together. We wanted to be the ones fixing the radar together. We wanted George, Jim, and I to fix the radar. That's how it went. And we always did everything together. Just, you name it. Whatever you can think of, we would do it. Sometimes with good results, sometimes not so much. So we were stationed there for 3 years, and we did a lot of activities together, but there was one constant theme with Jim other than work, and it was sports. So we played any conceivable sport that you can think of. We would play basketball, we would play volleyball, we would play softball. We used to bowl, we used to golf, we used to play ping pong, you name it. let's play something. As you heard, he had a really mean backhand at racquetball, so I have to share this little story about Jorge Cordero introduction to playing racquetball. I never played it before. Jim said, let's play racquetball. I said, okay. We played once. Emphasis, once. I got humiliated so bad that I never set foot on another racquetball court again. Ever. And if you read Jim's obituary, there's a reference to two suckers that would play with Jim. Let me introduce you. Sucker number one, George Pacheco. Stand up so they can see you, so they can recognize you. Sucker number two. I never played ever again, ever. George was a little bit more ambitious. He wanted to play with Jim because Jim was such a great player. Jim was like the best player in the base. He was number 3 in Europe at the time. He was so awesome. By the way, when we played, he beat me so bad. His shots, just about all of them, were between his legs. I kid you not. And that ball was this high off the ground, sailing at, I don't know, but it seems like 150 miles per hour. That's why I never played again. But he didn't do it to humiliate people. He wanted to share the game that he loved. He wanted to have fun. George had more fun. I didn't. But George continued to play, and they were like playing buddies. They were always playing racquetball. I played every other sport except for that one. So I moved on to something else, but the constant theme was playing, having a good time, and smiling and laughing. And whenever he hit one of those shots between his legs, he would just look at you and smile and point at you and go, sorry. We try to laugh at everything we did. If you heard Sandy saying that he was always giggling and always laughing and smiling, when he was in the Air Force, he was no different. He was always smiling, no matter what. No matter what. Even when he was having a hard time, he would smile. He dealt with it that way, by smiling and laughing. That's the way he did it. I'm going to give you another example that came at my expense. One time we enter a 2-man volleyball team tournament. And I was having this discussion with Kentley earlier, and we were talking about getting six-packed. And back in the day, we used to say getting six-packed was getting hit in the face with a volleyball traveling at 75 miles per hour. So we were playing, and Jim was at the net blocking, and apparently he missed the block a little, and it landed right on my face. At the time, I used to wear glasses, and I had forgotten to switch my glasses to my playing goggles. My glasses went flying in 2 different pieces. Lenses were popping out of whatever was left of the frame, and I was like lost, and I looked to my right, and Jim is on the floor laughing. Really, Jim? And he's like, you got six-pack so bad. Yes, I did. But that's how we dealt with everything. We were always laughing, no matter what. We couldn't even start playing again because he was still laughing. In between points, we would look at each other, and he was still laughing. And I would laugh at him, and he would laugh at me. And that's how we did it. That's how we dealt with whatever was, how we dealt with everything. So there were some rules of engagement that I had with Karen that we talked about this morning. I'm a radar guy, so is George and Jim. When our guys used to control airplanes and they were practicing engagements, whenever they wanted to break the engagement, they would say, knock it off, knock it off. So that was going to be my clue today. If I went long, she was going to tell me, knock it off, knock it off. So I was throwing it out there because I didn't want you to think that she was being rude at me. It was just an Air Force term. So this is the part where you don't get to say, knock it off, okay? Jim was a great guy, fun guy, and he also was the ultimate bachelor. All he wanted to do was work hard so we could play harder. He enjoyed playing any sports, reading his Stephen King books, hanging out with friends, going out to dinners at the local God's houses, hanging out with my family, George's family, and sharing a couple of adult beverages once in a while with his buddies. There was no time for girlfriends. He was the ultimate bachelor for a very, very long time. We thought he would never get married, and while he was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, he met Karen, and that was it. He was hooked. Looking back, we never thought it would happen, and we really didn't understand why not. But now we know better. He was waiting for the perfect one, the love of his life. And his love grew even more when Frankie and Brad were born. He was a happy man. He was a complete man because he had everything he wanted in his life. If he were here today, he would say to the kids, he had the two most amazing kids a dad could hope for. Always proud. And if he were here today, he would also say to Karen that he was glad he waited to find the perfect one. He would also thank Karen for being his partner, his advocate, his guardian, mother of his children, but mostly for being the perfect one. Thank you.
Want everybody to see the shirt and what color it is. Not only that, Jim didn't like jackets anyway. As a father, you always know that there are going to be certain days in your life when things are going to happen and you want them to happen in a certain way. And so when Karen called me and told me that she thought she had met the one, and I said, well, what's his name? And she said, James Garner. I said, Karen, isn't he a little old for you? No, Dad, not that James Garner. His name is James Garner. I said, oh, okay. Well, where's he from? He's from Connecticut. I'm a New England boy, so she made the right decision, a New England boy. So we go out to Las Vegas, and we meet Jim. And as already been described, he had the most beautiful smile I think I've ever seen. It would light up the room. And I thought, wow, she's marrying up. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, this guy's 35 years old? What's wrong with him? Why has he waited till he's 35 years old? Well, we got to talking, and Karen had told me that in all probability he would ask for her hand in marriage. And I like that. That's old-fashioned. As a dad, that's good. And he did. He said, Mr. Hagan, I'd like to marry your daughter with your permission. And I said, I have 3 conditions, and you have to meet all 3 of them. I said, you're never to lay a hand on her, number 1. Number 2, you're to always love her, to honor her, and to encourage her. And number 3, when you have children, I want you to be the best dad that you can be. He promised me all three of those. And I said, I'm going to hold you to that promise. You may marry my daughter. And then before I could leave the room, I thought about something, and I turned around and I said, Jim, this is like a little PS. I need for you to get a transfer out of Las Vegas. Because when I come to visit, I have to pay for my gambling, my wife's gambling, and your future wife's gambling. And he said, I'll work on that. The last few years, and especially the last 9 months, have been very difficult on the whole family. But just look around this room. This is what Jim Garner was all about. He loved coming to our house. He loved eating his mother-in-law's meals. There was a contest between him and my grandson Tyler as to who could eat the most. And if you ever left anything laying around, he ate it. But he just enjoyed coming to our house on Thanksgiving and on Christmas and any other time that he could. So they moved to Missouri. I'm not going to say anything about Missouri. I'm sure there's some people out here that are from Missouri. We're not going to do that. And then they moved to the Hampton Roads area. And Karen came to stay with us as they were moving. And she says, Dad, I've got to go up and find a house. Jim's not going to be with me. I'm going to go house hunting, and I'm going to find the house. And I'm thinking, that may not be all that cool. You go up there and get the house, and Jim's never seen the house. But I stayed out of it. And she was up there for a day and a half, and she called me all excited. I have found this house in a place called Hilton Village, and it's perfect. You can walk to school. The school is a block away. The kids can walk to school. You can walk in the neighborhood. It has beautiful trees. Jim will love it. The house is almost 100 years old. Well, you know, I bought a house, my first house, and it was about 20 years old, and I piled about $10,000 in it before it was 12 years old, or 22 years old. So I said, okay, that's fine. But guess what? She could not have picked a better place to live. The love and support that has come from this community is overwhelming. It's beyond comprehension. Today, in our society, we read all kinds of bad news. We see it on TV. Doesn't compare to what's happened in this community with Jim and his family. I don't know how you can describe it. What kind of people, before they go to work, come by to sit with Jim at 5 o'clock in the morning so that he would have somebody with him, or they could relieve Karen or somebody else to sit with Jim. What kind of people come to Jim's bed while he cannot be comprehensive and sing to him to comfort him? What kind of friends would travel from as far away as Colorado to share one golfing day with him so that he would have some memories? What kind of people would call on a daily basis to find out if they could carry Frankie or Bradley to either a practice or a school? I'll tell you what kind of people. People with love in their hearts and with care in their hearts. I come from a community whose slogan is a caring community. That's our slogan. No. This is a caring community. There are some of you here, I'm sure today, that did not know Jim Garner, but you're here because of the story and because of the family, and I can't tell you how comforting that is to us. This community has opened its arms in many, many different ways to help this family and to ease their grief and to make things better for them. And so my wife and I, Cindy and I, when we go back home, we go with the understanding and the comfort to know that that family is in loving hands because of this community. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. As Jim, in his last few days, it was very hard to communicate with him. And the last thing that I told him, and I'm sure he heard it, was you kept your promise. He was a terrific husband, and he was a fantastic father. And so I'm reminded of a song by the Eagles, Hotel California. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. And there's a great line in that song. And it says, you can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave. Jim Garner has checked out of this life, but he will never leave my heart or my mind. He was my son-in-law, and I loved him. Thank you.
Before I start, I want to thank my dad and Sandy and Jorge for such eloquent words. They're pretty hard to follow. And thank you so much to Shelley and Diane. How lucky am I to have friends that sound that good and who agree to celebrate Jim with their talents. So thank you so much. When we decide to get married, we think we know the person that we're marrying. You think you know how they're going to behave in any particular circumstance. But as we all know who have taken vows, things come at you left and right. Children come along, moves happen, jobs change, friends change. And you never really know how that person is going to react. I did marry up because Jim was Jim. Jim did Jim like nobody else could. And by that I mean he never tried to be anybody else besides himself. Even living in different homes and states and cities and making new friends and having different jobs, having children, he stayed the same man that I married. So when we faced different things, he stayed the same man that I married. Honest, hardworking, loving, giving, and patient, because I needed a lot of patience from the man that I married, because I was not an easy wife. I'll be the first to admit it, and I told him that all the time. And he just laughed it off and reminded me that he was the lucky one. But the truth is, I was always the lucky one, because through his quiet strength for all of our years of marriage, he showed me how to be a better person. My parents raised me to be a good person, but Jim made me a better person because he allowed me to grow into what I was supposed to be. And he supported me through every growth spurt and setback that I've had. Every crazy idea I had, most of them were so insane looking back. I can't believe he never said anything. But he loved me, and I never doubted that. Even in our darkest days, I always knew that he loved me and he would never leave me. We had times that were really tough, just like most marriages. But we agreed a long time ago that we would stick together and we would make it work. So Jim was the kind of husband that went to marriage counseling, who would stay up late at night having those hard talks, and who forgave for all my fallacies. So when he got diagnosed, we didn't really know what to expect. But through his learning how to die, he taught me how to live. Because he did it with the grace and the strength and the kindness and the patience that he had always shown. He never sat and cried, "Why me?" Never, not one time. He got up every morning and tried to do the best that he could that particular day. And as the disease progressed, that became harder and harder for him and harder on our family. And I wish so bad that I could go back and appreciate how wonderful he was as he progressed. But all I could think about was what was coming down the road. Not Jim. He got up and he loved me and he loved his kids, and he coached them until he couldn't make a decision coaching the bases anymore, and he helped with the chores until he couldn't help with the chores anymore. And he gave me a gift that I could never repay him for. Not just my children, but my ability to be a better mom to them, because he showed me how to be a better mom by being the best dad I have ever seen. Sorry, Dad. My mom used to tell me he spoiled me because he helped with the chores and he helped change diapers and he let me do basically whatever I wanted to do. But Jim didn't see it as spoiling me. Jim saw it as just being the husband and the father that he should be. Him changing diapers was him participating in his kid's life. Him being their coach or walking them to school or fixing them lunch or getting up with them in the middle of the night. That was just Jim being a dad, which is what he wanted. His dream job was to be a stay-at-home dad. The blessing of Alzheimer's was that he became a stay-at-home dad. And he got to spend a lot of time with his children. And I'm so glad that he was able to. It's been a long, hard road, but I am proud to say that I was the wife of James Bradley Garner, and that my children are the children of James Bradley Garner. And I am so grateful for all of you to be here to share in his memory. We wanted to keep this uplifting because that's what Jim had wanted. And we did have talks. You know, you find out you have a disease that there's no cure for. You have some really hard talks. And one day I asked him, I said, Jim, are you scared? And he said, no, he's not. I actually asked him that several times, and his answer was always the same. And it was because he trusted me. He trusted me to always make the right decision, whether it was when he should stop driving or when he could no longer live in our home. And he trusted me to take care of him and our children and to keep moving forward and to keep advocating. He trusted me with that blog. I asked him many times if there was anything I couldn't write about. He said, no, I trust you. And that puts a lot of weight on my shoulders with that trust, but I am so grateful to him. And I didn't realize how much he trusted me until I started looking back and hearing stories from other people and learning that other families going through the same thing actually end up having a harder battle. But Jim actually tried to make it as easy as he could on us because ultimately he was worried about us. So I thank my friends in the community for wrapping us in your love and your support because it gave Jim a lot of comfort to know that we were going to be taken care of. So I want to thank you for that. I do have another thing I'd like to ask. Please continue the fight with us. That meant so much to him. Please continue speaking out on this horrible disease because although there are many people praying for us, thank you for your prayers, but please pray for the people that will be following behind us who have yet to get that diagnosis. Pray for the people who had a decision years ago to fund more research and they chose not to because they have to live with that decision. So I ask everybody here to ask for research, for funding, for help for families like ours, because not everybody lives in a community like this. And as grateful as I am, I feel so guilty because through my blog I hear from people all over the world, and many of them have nobody to help them. So I'm so grateful to all of you, but please help everybody else that's going through this and who will be facing this. And I thank you. I have to tell you, Jim would love this. Everybody from his Air Force days to his work here, to his Alzheimer's community, to the baseball and softball teams, we're all here together. There's just one person missing. And he would just love to have all of these people from his different areas of his life. So, we as humans tend to clump together with what we're comfortable with. We have purposefully not put many tables in the back because we want people mingling and talking and sharing stories about Jim. You all have something in common, everybody that's here. So even though you may not know each other, you have a common bond. So please don't be shy. Go up, ask how somebody knows Jim, and share some of the wonderful stories that are to be told today about such a wonderful, wonderful man. And we do have a videographer here. I have asked him to come because we are going to do a video diary for the kids. And please, I know it's hard, but please, no matter how small story you have about Jim, share it, and the kids will have that for years to come. And we thank you for that so much. So this is a hard journey, and I am up here to ask you all to smile. I am grieving with you, but most of all, I am celebrating the fact I was lucky enough to be married to such a wonderful man. and that I'm the mother of his children, and that he did choose me. So thank you so much.
I don't want to talk about all I want to talk about is all the good that he did and how amazing he was as a person. He would drop everything to go do something with me. He would walk me to school, then go to work, come back, drop everything, and go play with me. Just then, I thought his day was over. He would go and tuck me in bed and read a book to me and somehow stay up long enough to go and get all his schoolwork done because he wanted to get his degree very bad. He got diagnosed in 2010 and got his degree in 2011. And if any of you guys know what the disease does, is it takes away your brain's memories. And that still didn't stop my dad from getting his degree and studying hard to get it. That's what he did during the week, but the weekend he would get outside and work hard all day cutting the hedge, mowing the grass, picking weeds, and doing other work around the house. Two quick stories I would like to share with you guys is we were a team like no other. We would do everything together. We had a special bond. When he would cut the hedge, he would cut it, and then I would rake it up in piles and help carry it out to the road. That is one example of our special bond. Now to the second one. One that made me and Frankie might never ever think about forgetting. We would need paint, so he would go up to Ace Hardware store and get the paint and get a treat. For him, it would always be a York peppermint patty and one for me too. He would say, "Eat it fast before we get home." And so we would gobble it up and hide the wrappers so Mom wouldn't know about it. Another gift that he left me and gave to me was his love for all sports. Literally, you name it and he could perfect it and then teach you it. This is how I learned how to play all of the sports. He would love and be willing to go out any time and throw catch with me. Even as the disease progressed, he would still go outside and throw catch. Not every ball would go straight to me. I would get upset at him, which I still regret to this day. But the most impressive things he did was not get angry at me. He all just said sorry and would keep trying again. Baseball wasn't his favorite sport to play, which is racquetball, but he still knew a lot about it. Another thing he would always look forward to doing was going to Chincoteague and Assateague on Mother's Day. This was one of his favorite places to go. We all loved to go there so much, and he would make it so much more enjoyable. One thing that we would do every time we went up would be bike riding. We would always get a hotel that owns a bike rental store. So we would get a bike and ride down to the ocean beach and sit there for a couple hours on the beach, enjoying the water. One time, we did it different. We decided to go camping on Assateague Island. I guess we didn't do enough research because there was a lighthouse that blinked all night. The longest night ever. And kept us up, but Dad was still in the best mood he could ever be in the morning. Whenever we whenever we would go, we would have to get ice cream from the local ice cream parlor. Dad would make us because he loved ice cream and food so much. I would be sitting on the other side of my house, and I would still hear him eat his carrots in the dining room. When he got sick, he would forget that he ate so much he could eat his favorite snack, Raisin Bran, like 7 times a day. A lot of you guys in the crowd own my dad's favorite animal, the dog. We got a dog 2 Christmases ago, and a lot of you guys saw him walk the dog around the block. But if you asked him, "Do you like the dog?" he would say no. Let's get rid of it. Thank you so much for being here today. And supporting how wonderful my dad was. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.